What I love is, it started off with, networking events and, virtual sort of sessions and so on. And now it's becoming so much more, right?
Preeti Adhikari is someone that I admire for so many reasons. She's an innovator that has taken a non-linear career path. She's someone who builds in public on LinkedIn, and it's obvious that she's enjoying the journey, not the destination, which shows up in her impact-driven career path. A concept that is easy to imagine, but incredibly difficult to accomplish at times. Preeti is the founder of the Great Nepali Diaspora, a community that connects immigrants from Nepal in a professional manner. As Preeti puts it, immigrant communities can have a very strong social ties, but not always strong professional ties. With the Great Nepali Diaspora community, Preeti has been able to connect Nepali talent by having over 2,000 members, 47 chapters, and over 75 events. Before becoming a founder, Preeti was in all sorts of roles. She's been in banking, leadership roles in startups, and a scout in venture capital. She graduated from the University of Tennessee with a degree in economics and eventually found her way to graduating from the Yale School of Management, aka Yale SOM, with a master in advanced management. Like many innovators, Preeti has worn many different hats throughout her career. So without further ado, let's jump into my conversation with Preeti. Let's start at the beginning. So before you even got into this kind of work, like was there any like early influences that kind of put you on this trajectory towards like this innovation work?
I actually came to the US as an undergrad student. I worked later, and I've, lived in other parts of the world as well. Apart from my home country, Nepal, I've also lived and worked in Singapore and Canada and so on. So I sort of have experienced that the pain points that that I'm trying to solve now. But I think apart from that, I have about 10 plus years in tech startups, banking, nonprofits, and so very diverse industries. But one sort of common thread with all of that has been impact. So now I think I'm sort of just connecting all the dots of my experiences.
So your background, you went from like banking and tech startups and investing, and now you're being on the founder side yourself. So, like, has there been particular events that have transitioned you into those particular things, or are they just been more of like a
Sure.
natural thing that's kind of happened and evolved as your career has gone on?
If I look back at my career, it just, it looks very nonlinear, right? Because, for a lot of people, they have this 10-year path or whatever, right? You go to undergrad, you work for a few years, you go to like do a master's and you do something, right? So they sort of have this very linear path. In terms of my career, because I've lived in so many different places and worked in so many different paths, I always felt like they're not connected at all, right? I was just jumping from one place to another, one sort of thing to another. But now as I look back, I think they're all sort of connected, right? I think they've given me that understanding of different cultures, of different places, people, and even different industries, right? So I've been able to now sort of bring all of that together. So when I talk to somebody in a startup versus somebody in finance and so on, I am able to also use my lived experiences and sort of make them a part of what I'm doing. So it's in a very strange way, it's all sort of come together.
So, like, how has it come together, right? So you're the founder of the Great Nepali Diaspora. Like, what is it? How is it? You've done a lot of lots of different events. You have 2,000 community members. Like, how?
Right.
What is it? And then why is it all this traction doing so well?
Sure. So, what I realized, and I think this is, while my community is for global Nepali professionals, so people that are around the world that have roots in Nepal, right? But I think the pain points that I'm trying to solve for are so true of any immigrant community, any minorities, and, a lot of these groups, right? Where we have very strong social ties, but not really strong professional ties. I think, being Asian and a minority, there's such a stigma with asking people for help, really, investing in long term relationships and so on. So, all these kind of perceptions, I think, do hold us back. For me, just as an example, I was on the board for Yale SOM has, a lot of alumni chapters around the world, and I was part of New York chapter, which is so vibrant, so amazing. And, I'm sure you've experienced it as well. When you're part of a university, you can always reach out to an alumni for help, right? If you have any questions, if you're thinking of going into consulting or anything like that, you can reach out to people, and even if that person is super busy, they give you that time, right? Which is so we in the US we take it for granted, right? That it's it's like that common thread that sort of helps you. But what happens with a lot of these immigrant communities is, we hang out together, we bond and so on, but we never talk about work. We never say, "Oh, guess what? I'm thinking about even starting my own company. How can you help?" Or this is the kind of support I need, right? So really, breaking those biases, I think, was important. So, in terms of what I'm doing, the idea itself is really simple, right? Helping people be open minded and really invest in professional relationships, right? But I think on top of that, there's layers of mentorship and guidance and making the right connections and so on. So a little bit of behavior shift, but amazing things to sort of to fuel us forward.
Totally. I think one of the cool things, like looking at your community, at least from a like online presence, right, is that everyone's all over the place, but it seems like everyone's still connecting through like virtual events and in-person events. So can you talk more
Right.
about like how you're connecting people, even though they might be, hours away, but they have still these like they're this the same, kind of coming from, and these some similar experiences still.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, for me, I think I sort of joke with people that maybe it's also part of this emotional maturity, like for myself. And I think, even in terms of, what I see, right? I think when people are, in college and young enough, I think we're all trying to survive, we're all trying to just fit in, right? So we're not really thinking about our identity, whether it's gender, race, or anything like that. But as I get older, I feel comfortable in like, the comfortable with the person I am, right? In terms of being from a certain country or having this kind of heritage, being different, I think, doesn't feel like something I should be ashamed of, right? Having a different accent seems like such a cool thing instead of something that when I initially came, I would be ashamed of my different name or my accent and so on. And, now I'm learning to embrace it. And even for our community, I think showcasing that has been such a connector, right? People feel comfortable that there are people that maybe have the same heritage and same roots, but are professionally successful. They're doing a lot of different things, but they're also fine with their identities, whatever that identity is. For me, I think LinkedIn has obviously played a big part in this community, like just and I think this is an advice for any entrepreneur, right? I think building in public is hard and scary and all of that. But when you put yourself out there, that sort of also attracts a lot of like minded people. So for me, just, putting my thoughts out there in terms of what I was seeing or what I was feeling, it sort of attracted a lot of people that helped shape that community. And even though, like you said, right, they're in different parts of the world, the same kind of struggles or the same kind of feelings, uh, you know, it is that bond between all of us. So that's, I think, helped us really scale to what we've been able to accomplish.
So I guess within that, so like, has there been any like moments you're like, ooh, like this is like right? There's obviously like there's challenges with every venture. It's just there's hurdles. It's like there's a great analogy of like it's like rolling a ball up a hill, except the ball is, 1,000,000 pounds, at least it feels like at times.
Right.
So what, from your standpoint, like has there been any moments maybe at events or just connecting with people, they're like, ooh, like this is the impact we want to make, or this makes this whole effort and this whole journey worth it.
Sort of a turning point was when I started putting my ideas out there, and people started responding. at that point, I don't think I had thought about actually starting a company or a nonprofit like that, right? But like once the demand became so much, I felt like I needed to do something about it, right? I didn't know what that was. So for me, I think the interesting thing was going into something without like having a proper blueprint of it, right? And that's something that, for any industry, that's not an advice people give, right? You're supposed to have clarity of thought, and you have to have a little bit of concrete plans before you step into some things, right? And I think that sort of is a way to mitigate risk and everything. But for me, I think this emotional as well as practical pull was so strong that I felt like I didn't fully understand what it was going to become, but I wanted to explore it, right? I think, every sort of signal that I could feel was sort of pointing me in this direction. What I love is, it started off with, networking events and, virtual sort of sessions and so on. And now it's becoming so much more, right? It's becoming this voice for our diaspora. It's becoming, this amazing platform for investments and mentorship and like incredible like change is happening, which is, I'm so grateful to be part of that.
Absolutely. When you're done with this, like, is there anything you're like, "Ooh, like, I hope the impact is this," or like, what do you hope to be able to say to even to yourself being like, "This is what, here's what the impact was," or like, "Here's what I hope to accomplish, like, with this."
A tagline that we use is fueling impact at scale, right? What that means is, on an individual level, we all do that, right? We sort of, we try to mentor people. We sort of might give a reference for a job. We're all doing little bits and pieces, right? And then, we're sort of helping people. But for me, I think the exciting thing, and there's intention behind it, but I didn't fully understand the scale of it, is that everything is happening at scale, right? So imagine, like, as an individual, I would maybe help 3 5 people, but what if thousands are helping each other, right? uh, you know uh, if hundreds of startups are getting seed funding through the community, if we're actually democratizing access to, opportunities and information and resources to thousands if not more people, I think that sort of has an incredible domino effect in terms of impact, right? It's hard to quantify it fully because, a lot of things are intangible as well, right? We can obviously, have metrics in terms of how many people join, how many people got a job through it, or how many people got mentored. But there's a lot of intangible value that the community is getting, right? In terms of really one that strengthening the bonds, and I think even in terms of future generations what this means. But in terms of how I feel about it, I was actually thinking about it a couple of days ago. So when I was, really young, I wanted to be a doctor, an army doctor, but gave that up later. Did my undergrad here and so on. So since I've been in college, every time somebody would ask me, what do you want to be when you grow up, right? And people have these different answers, computer scientists or, astronaut or I don't know what, right? The doctors, engineers, and so on. I remember always saying that I wanted to be happy, which sounds so corny, right? I mean, even I can't believe used to say that. But it doesn't mean that I didn't have goals or I wasn't ambitious or anything like that. I feel like I always wanted this simple life where I wasn't chasing titles or things like that, but I was uh, you know, trying to do something with a purpose. For me, I think that the turning point is, I think I was on a different path. Before actually I went to SOM, I used to be the VP of marketing of an AI startup. I think I would have sort of continued on that journey. But during COVID, my mom got sick in Nepal, and I went there, and while she was struggling with all of that, I think it was almost like a wake up call for me as well, in terms of that I couldn't, like, I think life is so short and unpredictable that I couldn't wait for my retirement to do something that has a purpose. I think that sort of was the push I needed as well, in terms of doing something that uh, makes me happy. I think I am. genuinely happy in terms of what I am building and the impact it's already having.
And that I think it's really interesting, right? Is you're talking about like, hey, we want everything scales. But at the same time, right, the important part is like it's the impact. It's how does this venture kind of build around like what I think I'm built to do and what I would need to be doing for my own goals and things
Right.
like that. So, right, like scale doesn't necessarily mean, right, that like, hey, I'm chasing titles, I'm chasing money, I'm chasing all these different things. It's a lot of
Right.
times it's actually like, no, like chasing the impact things because scale actually helps us do those things. So like they're
Exactly.
I think we can think of scale as a lot of like, "Oh, we need to be venture backed," and like, it's not necessarily what it
Right, right. The
is.
metrics, right? And sometimes I
Yeah,
think society tells you what those metrics for anything are, and I think it's interesting to look at that from a different angle as well.
totally. You have a crazy awesome LinkedIn experience, so if you're not following, Preeti on LinkedIn, you should. But where else can people learn about more about what you're doing?
I can share the link tree, which has obviously the LinkedIn page, our website, as well as our Instagram page. And I also read a lot, so I'm on this new app called Bookworm, I think, so where I share about the books I'm reading and so on.
So that's my conversation with Preeti. If you enjoyed it, let me know by subscribing to the station email newsletter. You can subscribe right in the description. I promise I won't spam you, and I'll reply right back to you if you email me there. I send the newest episodes through the newsletter, plus additional resources each week. Thanks for watching and listening.